recovered all the riches from which they had been looted by enemies. Chapter 5. The Great Liberation represents the liberation of Israel in the last days. Abraham discovers that the Great Liberation was concretized in Rosh Hashanah. Abraham preaches the faith in the Messiah to the liberated captives, inviting them to purify themselves in water. Only 3 accept him. Abraham rejects the offer of the king of Sodom. Abraham and the faithful decide to commemorate the festival of Sukkot in Salem. The Pearls of the Vase. Festive welcome in Salem. The meeting of Abraham and Melchizedek. See Chrono 1, 2 and 3. From the top of the hill, while I vibrated with the joy of the captives on that morning of liberation, I heard the voice of Yahweh speaking to me in the middle of the flame. This liberation that is concretized today represents the liberation that I have to operate in the last days, saving the remnants of your children from the siege of numerous nations that will ally themselves with Gog in order to destroy them. On that day when they triumph over my people, my indignation will be very great, and I will contend against it through the plague and the blood, flooding rain, great rocks of hail, fire and brimstone I will make fall on him, on his troops and on his many towns that were with him. Thus, I will magnify myself, justify my holiness and make myself known in the eyes of many nations, and they will know that I am the Lord. And on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem I will pour out the spirit of thanks and supplications. They will look at me whom they pierced, and will lament as one who laments for an only begotten son, and will cry for him as one who cries bitterly for the firstborn. On that day, there will be an open source for David's house and for the inhabitants of Jerusalem, to remove sin and impurity. Aware of the historical importance of that day of liberation, I took a calendar and looked with surprise, for it was Rosh Hashanah, our trumpet day. That was the first day of a new year. 10 days later the Yom Kippur would come, the day of the purification of sins. On the 15th, the Sukkot party, the joyous autumn harvest party, would take place. The flame that for me had become a representation of the promised Messiah, went out the moment I descended to meet the shepherds and the many captives now released. Full of joy and admiration, everyone wanted to know how such a great liberation had become possible, only with the use of those torches and horns. I told them then about the importance of that fire that had been released from the altar, to free them in that valley, identifying it as the Savior Messiah. Seeing that everyone carried the dirt of slavery in their bodies and mantles, I invited them to follow me to the Jordan River, where everyone could bathe, for the purification of their sins. Only 3 people attended the invitation: Lot and his 2 most recent daughters. The others returned contaminated to their homes. Before leaving, the king of Sodom came to meet me, promising to give me all the wealth recovered that morning.